Yes, no,
Yeah,
still.
now you got it.
Okay,
Perfect.
perfect. Carry on.
Thanks. All right. Well, first of all, I want to say thanks for everybody coming on board. Obviously, I think, 3 different total experiences, but all kind of come to the same place at the end of the day as you're trying to make your members or your guests have a great experience out there. And sometimes that is addressing pace of play issues, but also more importantly, making sure that their day is good. And one thing I really preach to my staff, and something that I learned a long time ago, was they don't like to just know that you're sitting inside the golf shop. I think as a staff, getting out and riding around is extremely important. Being visible. I think just being out there sometimes shakes them up a little bit and reminds them, hey, maybe we got to know where we are in terms of the rest of the groups out there. So big thing just to get across right away is be visible and be out there. Don't wait for problems to happen. Be proactive, be reactive, or not be reactive. I think all of us know that, and sometimes lessons and everything else that's going on kind of takes precedent, but be out there. I think that's extremely important. Go ahead and switch this slide, Erica. Thank you. I think start number one is setting the expectations, and we start that by communicating to our membership about what the expectations are. We can't always expect them to know that normal pace of play is a certain time frame. So one of the first things we talk about is when we have a new member orientation is what our expected pace of play is. And that's 3 hours and 45 minutes for us at Ozaki to 4. And that's regardless of time of day or day. So we really kind of hit that home and try to, really make sure they're aware of that. Then we do reminders during the season. Obviously email communications are great, except very few people actually spend the time to read all of it. They kind of read what they want to see, but it's getting it out there. So one of the things we do when we're fortunate, when we run a golf event, whether it's a wrap up or a before type, we do talk about the importance of pace play. It's a constant reminder. It's like having kids. It's always reminding them the same things over and over and over. They know it, but I think it's important that you spend the time to kind of hit home on it. Standing out on that first tee is always a good time to do it. Ladies' days, men's days. I think that's a time that you can get that little interaction, and it's not so much, but hey, by the way, play fast today. It's look forward to seeing when you get in. Creating that positive experience on their way out just sets them off in the right direction. One thing we're going to start doing a little bit more at Ozaki is doing some more videos on social media talking about things, and pace play is going to be one of them. One thing I always hear is that the response I get when we do drive up to somebody or talk to somebody, and I hear well, they're not pushing us from behind. And I try to explain that, yes, but the group in front of you is a hole ahead, and always reiterating, look forward, not backwards. And I think we can have some fun with that and doing a video communication to our membership. Junior golf's another way. Start the expectation early about getting around. It's not about not enjoying golf, but it's about the importance of keeping up pace of play. I had a story this past year where one of the grandparents came up to me and said, I was out playing golf with my grandson, and he told me, Grandpa, we got to get, speeding up here. We're behind pace. So it's really cool to hear that from a 9-year-old kid telling Grandpa that they got to pick up pace. So that tells us we're doing the right thing from the ground up and working our way when they become members. All right, preventative measures, things that we can do to stop problems before they happen. And this is one thing that we started to do. And I'm not gonna say it's tricky, but you got to know what you're doing. So I kind of take it upon myself and try to explain to my staff why I do it. And I always look at the tee sheet 7 days in advance. I'm looking at it because I want to see who's on the tee sheet, who's making times. And at a private club, for those of you that are here, even public, sometimes the same people want to play around the same times. And that's a good way to kind of understand who's coming out, but then also who might be trying to get behind them and where those problems could be. So every once in a while, if I have busy days on a Thursday or a Friday or Saturday or Sunday, Fridays, I know we have a lot of guests play in the afternoon at Ozaki. We'll put some creative blockers in there. We'll block some times, hide some tee times. Holiday weekends are great to do that too. But again, you got to do it in advance before people can start making times on the tee sheet. And it's one way you can be a hero. I can tell you many times, all of a sudden somebody forgot to make a time on Memorial Day, and they reach out to you, hey, I see there's a block time, and you can then slide them in and help them out. But at the same time, you have that option to say, no, we need to save that as a starter time. As I remind my team, You can't get a time back. You can only add it on. So if you block it in advance, you have the luxury of being able to keep that as a starter time. And doing that can actually help out and create, prevent some problems by just blocking that one time. That little bit of break can somehow give that little bit of relief for those players out there that they have some time to run out there. We also limit outside groups with guest play. It's about being smart. It's nothing that is new, nothing that, is earth shattering, but it's making sure that we don't just pack guest play around member play. I think that's important. And then again, I train the professional staff.
It's gonna leave it on, like a camera's off, it's muted, but.
Using judgment when booking guest play, reciprocal guests,
What's that?
know who's already.
Stein?
Yeah.
Yeah, I went to lunch with them.
Okay, yeah.
I try to make sure that my staff
That's the same
understands
boat.
that
Jay,
certain groups
hang
might
on
not.
hang on one second. Trying to mute everybody on the call. If you're turning in, just make sure that you are on mute. Trying to locate,
Looks like
you need to
down the
mute
corner.
here.
Yeah, Pat told me you gotta smoke an offer to go down there.
Well, I think it was listed for like 90 to 120,
Yeah, Pat said he got
or no, 75 to 90.
100.
Okay.
And then all his health, everything, they're gonna pay for all that, all insurance. and then-
Erica, if you're able to mute
bonus
Josh,
is-
looks like where it's coming
yeah,
from.
Doing
I'm
great.
trying here. I have to scroll. Sorry, I just got with all
That's
the
okay.
presentation
He's probably
and
gonna pull 130. You know,
Yeah.
easy.
Because that was the old Badger hockey player. What was that? Can't think of his name.
Oh, yeah, not man.
Is it Lance Turk?
Jordan Brown used to work there. For him.
who are we looking for, Danny?
You might need to be-
You're looking for Josh.
Yeah, I think Josh Glendenning is who we're picking up there.
I think. Is he listed by name or is he by phone?
Mhm.
Yep, it's by name.
Why can't I see
Oh,
him?
He's
You
muted.
got
now.
it.
He
Okay,
must have heard us.
sorry
Sorry,
about that.
guys.
I just, because I've got the presentation up, I've got the chat going, I've got so my screen looks
nope.
insane right now. So
Mhm.
thanks for the help. Appreciate it. Jason, carry on.
All right. So again, I'll go back. Just training professional staff. I think it's taking the time to educate your team, whether you have new staff members or experienced staff members. Just remind them, I can't make every tee time. I don't expect, them to, force everything to me. I empower them to make decisions, but it's important if I get a reciprocal group or a PJ, member calls up trying to get outside groups, we have to understand where we can put them. So like we have a rule, obviously on Saturdays and Sundays, nothing before a certain time. Fridays, it's got to be before us. And it's smart because you want to help everybody out, but at the same time, you don't want to create a problem by helping out and then affecting your members. So making sure they understand what to do. And if we get some pushback, any difficult decisions can always go back to the head golf professionals. My staff is trained, if you don't feel comfortable making the call, send that to me, getting all the contact information. So if I decide, hey, we should probably move them, or hey, we had something come up, you want to be able to make sure you get back to those people. And if you have a caddy program, suggest outside groups take a 4 caddy. It's only going to help. It's going to enhance the experience for everybody. It helps pace of play. The 4 caddies, they get out. And it's a good time for those guest groups, especially if you've played Ozaki or wherever your club is, whatever it might be, the intricacies of how difficult it can be, or, getting around the golf course. And that they can prevent some problems before they arise. So again, training the professional staff is super important, limiting outside play and utilize those starter times, and definitely be proactive and review your tee sheets in advance. All right, on course action. There's always going to be an issue. My staff knows we have a tendency to have a member every once in a while call, and the phone call starts with, "This is an anonymous caller. We have a pace of play issue." Well, obviously we're going to figure it out because we know what hole they're on and we go out there and we know who called, but it's kind of tongue in cheek in terms of knowing that. But so when it does happen, my staff knows, and we should always go through professionalism always and work with your members and guests. Don't go out there guns blazing, trying to fix everything. And we utilize a little acronym PJ, passive group assistance. So if you get a call about an issue, take a tee sheet, radio, phone, any communication you need, just so you have all the details correct. The last thing you want to do is go out there and you're there and you think you know what's going on and you address the wrong group. Because sometimes it might not be the group you're anticipating. You might look at the T sheet before you leave and you're like, oh, it's got to be the 10:30. Well, it might not be. So go forward and work your way back. I think that's a really big thing I learned a long time ago. Again, nothing that you guys don't know, but I can't stress it enough, especially at a private club, because you don't get a second chance to not offend somebody and you're going to see them again. So work your way back, find the issue. And one thing I train my staff to do is once you find the issue, wait for them to approach the green or in the fairway, something like that, and assist with them. So if they're in a bunker or if they're on the green, grab the flag stick, all of a sudden you become a hero and you greet them, you're kind. And most times they may be aware that they're out of position. The amount of times that people have come up and said, how we doing? And I'll just simply respond, the group in front of you is just a little bit out, ahead of you. I think you guys could kind of close the gap a little bit. Okay, that's great. Thanks. And it's a positive experience versus if you've ever been playing golf and a ranger or a starter comes up or even a professional says, come on guys, you're behind pace, we got to pick it up. That just creates a bad experience. The guard goes up on the member, they're upset, and you're not viewed as a positive, staff member, or your staff is. And I can't stress enough, going out there and just being professional, respectful goes a long way. And most times I will say they get it and they appreciate it, especially when they have guests. I did have an instance where I did this on a hole. I went out there, a group that had guests, and a group came in, the member came in, so it was, I pushed him along, and even though I had all the data and time for him, he wasn't going to win. So you don't win every time, but most times you go out there, you're going to create that positive experience instead of creating a negative. And again, I just can't stress enough, just working and helping goes such a long way instead of just telling them what to do. Work with them. They see you working and helping them out. You're doing your part to assist them and moving on. So it's all a good thing at the end of the day. This was one of my biggest things I try to get through is once you address the issue, once you've helped the group, you've told them, don't stop, don't go in, don't ride in and be like, yep, I've done my job. Now work your way back to the groups behind, because those are the ones that are frustrated, and to let them know what you've done. Actually say, I've spoke to the group in front of you. They know that they have to pick up pace. I'm going to come back and check on them in 20 minutes or 15 minutes, whatever it might be, because now those people know that something's been done. And I think one of the biggest things at a private club, most times members, they either just want to be heard or know that somebody's doing something about their issue. And if you just leave it go and don't address it, then they're not sure somebody even did anything. So always follow up with the people behind the trouble group. And like I said, members always appreciate knowing something's been done instead of just wondering, did anybody even care that I called? All right, when the situation just doesn't get resolved, and that does happen out there, and if I'm not out there, my staff is out there, I'm going to make sure I remind them that whatever you do, you're going to see that member again soon. What does that mean? Well, the member's there, it might be June, might be a pace play issue. If you treat them without respect or kindness, they're going to remember that, and you got to see them for the rest of the year. They might hold that against you, that kind of stuff. So always just take a step back and remind yourself you're out there to help. You're not out there to make things a frustrating experience for anybody. In the right scenario, I've done this a few times. If for some reason this group is just a struggle, we've had this happen, you've worked with them, you've done everything you can, the group behind just is frustrated and nothing's going on to help. I've offered rounds of drinks, and it could be a simple gesture to make things better. It lets them understand that, hey, sorry for this, and hopefully we can make your day better. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't, but just being able to offer something to make the day a little bit better always helps. And it creates, turns a bad day into a little bit better day for some of these people. And it makes you, look like you're actually trying to care and make the day better instead of just like, well, couldn't do anything about it. So find little things that might help. I've been at a resort golf course where we would hand out little slips of paper, if the experience was that poor and it was for 15% off or 20% off in the golf shop. Anything they might think is a positive, definitely is things you can do. Anything like that might help. One thing I always stress to my team, and as the head professional, I'm very conscious, I want to get as much information that I can. So let's say something doesn't get resolved out there and it's a problem and you're one of the assistants or your starter or your ranger or a bag room kid goes out there. make sure the head professional has all the information. So they're not blindsided by anything or an off the cuff conversation in passing. I've had that happen before where I'll walk through the men's lounge saying hello and I get blindsided by, hey, thanks for not coming out there and helping out today. And I didn't know that anything happened. So really communication is a huge thing for all of us. And this is a great way for that profession to be able to handle the situation and make sure you provide all the details. This little tidbit here is something I learned, and it's a lot of different things, not just pace of player issues, but follow up with a phone call. Emails get deleted. Members don't, give you all the details, in an email or a conversation. When you actually talk to them, you can actually get some more out of them, but they also understand your tone, your empathy, and that you understand. An email might not come across the best. So they just want to vent. They want to be heard. And the least you can do is take that 5-10 minutes to listen. I think that's a huge thing for everybody, is just take that little bit of personal time there. And I've done this before. Make sure you document certain situations. Bringing certain scenarios to your golf committee or golf chair can protect you. There's always hey, the pro handled it this way. I didn't appreciate it. I want to make sure I get all, things lined up. So that way that, the people that are supporting our staff, supporting myself, have all the details in the story, because it can be viewed a lot of different ways. And it just helps you make sure that you got all your ducks in a row. All right, just a quick review for everybody. And again, I think we all do this in all of our walks of life in the golf business, but it's just kind of a nice wrap up and a reminder, train your team, support your staff's decision. I can't stress that one enough. I empower my team to go out there and take care of problems. And if I'm constantly questioning what they're doing or saying, well, he or she didn't handle it the right way, that's not a positive thing. If your staff makes a decision, support them and work with them. Be prepared to work with people and find a solution. Like I said, don't ride out there guns blazing, trying to change everything. Everything has a story. A ball might have got lost. Somebody may have needed to stop. Something happened. There could have been a medical situation. You don't know. So find out all the information first before you tell everybody what to do. At the end of the day, a few extra minutes won't hurt neglecting. But, if you don't do anything, that will get remembered. So make sure you go out there, spend the time to help, make those phone calls as well. And PGA works, the passive group assistance. You become a helper, you're viewed in a positive light, less confrontation, it's more effective. And most times people don't even think that you're going to come do that. And they're wowed when, hey, he grabbed the bunker for me. He grabbed the flagstick, or he replaced the divot. They remember that kind of stuff in a lot better light. And as a reminder, no golfer is slow. I've yet to ever have somebody, when I go out there, say, yep, I'm slow. It's always the other person. So when you do go approach people, just be ready for that, because you might not get that response that you think. And how you handle the situation determine if they pick up the pace or not. So what I mean by that is, through experience, more times than not, if you're out there and being supportive and helping them, they're going to do their part to pick up pace. If you go out there and are rude, create a bad experience, they're only going to make it worse for you. And then you have to handle it later on. So take the time to do it in advance, fix the problem, work with people, and you should have a good result at the end of the day.
Thanks, Jason. If anybody has any other questions for Jason, feel free to unmute yourself and ask them right now. I'm going to pull up Derek's presentation. So if we have questions, feel free. If not, we'll transition here into our next speaker.
Just while Eric is pulling that up, Jason, a question about you mentioned using starter times. Like, do you do that all the time or just busy days? And what's your regular tee time interval? Good
question. I primarily do that on weekend days. I'll do that on days that we get that I know that are busy. And I've been, now they're 5 years, you kind of understand. Obviously, Father's Day is one of them, holiday weekends, just being proactive on it and taking a look. I'm not putting starter times in at 2 o'clock on a Saturday, but it's the morning times that I kind of do that. And I take control of that. I don't tell my staff that they should do it. I want to be the one, because if somebody gets upset or my golf chair is wondering why it's happening, I'm the one making those decisions. So I put that on my shoulders to make sure. And on average, it's maybe 4 times, and I'll kind of do it around the same time. So I might block a 7:50, an 8:50, a 9:50, and a 10:50. So that's why it's sequential, and then it just kind of breaks it up.
Got it. Makes sense. And you're on like 10 minutes normally then?
Yeah, we do
Or
10-minute
is your
intervals.
regular
Correct.
interval? Yeah.
Mhm.
Okay. Thank you.
You bet.
Erica, it looks like we're seeing your files again and not the next presentation.
Sounds good. Bear with me here a second.
I've got a question. This is John at Carroll University.
Go ahead, John.
John.
Okay, in the junior programs, what type of education is being provided on pace of play? I mean, etiquette, obviously, you know, repairing ball marks, replacing divots, the standard etiquette protocols, but course conduct, you know, placing golf bags on the tee, you know, how players are conducting themselves on the course, you know, approaching greens from far out. Where's that next tee? Where am I putting my golf bag? How am I approaching the green to repair my ball mark and mark my ball in an efficient manner? Because at every golf tournament I'm at, and these are college players, the lack of knowledge of this, the lack of course knowledge or course conduct knowledge is really surprising. And I'm trying to, you know, address it, talk to our commissioner of the conference, talk to the USGA at the PGA show. I forget the gentleman's name, but he's, you know, very interested in terms of creating a curriculum that can be introduced by college coaches, high school coaches, to get players to be more efficient. So many minutes are lost in small little situations that cumulatively create a real problem.
Yeah, I think it's a good question. I think you've got a lot of different variables here, from understanding golf course and knowing where they're at. You know, I can just speak on what we do at Ozaki with junior golf. Is, you know, we do take one of our first sessions that we have, first two sessions, it's primarily about etiquette and also what to do. And then we do rely on a lot of the parents out there as well. We'll ride around from time to time and watch the kids, see what they're doing. Our junior golf program is, you know, geared more towards the younger kids. You know, we start getting the more adult kids, we start talking about that more in PGA Junior League, understanding on pace and how to keep moving, because they actually have to carry their bag and go. And that's where you start getting a few more experienced kids on that, to do that. I think you bring up a good point regarding, you know, where to put the bag and course management, understanding. And some of that does come down to, you know, hitting home on it, reminding them, and it's just, again, a constant education, I think. So I think it's a great topic to bring up, and I'm glad to know that there's somebody out there that's potentially looking at some type of curriculum to do that in for all programs.
Yeah, I mean, it's a major problem. These rounds are 5 hours, and it needs to start early, and it needs to be reinforced, and it needs to be a structured program. I mean, it's like a caddy program. I mean, there should be, you know, photographs, video, you know, course walk, part of that. And if the Wisconsin section has any thoughts on, you know, what type of program can be created through the office that could be shared with courses, you know, both private and public, that would be of interest.
Yeah, John, I think you bring up a lot of great points. I think that's a discussion we'll have offline, just for time purposes. But you bring up a lot of great points. I think a lot of it has to start early on.
Thanks. Thank you.
All right, everybody, just make sure you're on mute. And then we are going to transition here to Derek from Sand Valley. It sounds like everybody can see the presentation. Thank you for your patience with that. Gets a little tricky on my end, monitoring the chat and the presentation, all that fun stuff. So appreciate your patience here. And Derek, whenever you're ready to begin, take it away. And then just let me know when you want to switch slides.
Sure. All right. Well, yeah, thank you, Danny, Jonathan, Erica, for setting it up. This was a lot of fun to get, you know, all of our thoughts on paper, and a lot of this, what you're seeing today is pretty much a component of what we give out to our Ranger team. So maybe I just need to preface this presentation. You may or may not look at me like I have 8 heads. This is probably not an approach for everybody. So Sand Valley is different than most places, so take it for what it is. You know, our ownership group, they really care about pace of play. How I am judged on how I do for the year is heavily correlated to how the pace of play is. So when the ownership buys in and says, you gotta come up with something, we want to see what you're doing. We put something together. So potentially a unique situation, but a lot of fun that we really do get to play around with this. And kind of one of the overarching themes that I think, I jotted down on one of my notes here is, we all complain, yeah, pace of play stinks. It stinks. Pace just is what it is. Well, you know what? I don't have that luxury. Jonathan doesn't have that luxury. Until we try everything, we are not allowed to say that pace stinks. So a lot of this comes directly from kind of the vision of myself, Jonathan, and our pace of play manager, Christian Nitz. Yes, we have a pace of play manager. You can ask questions about what they do in the chat if you'd like. I'm sure we'll get something there. So where it all starts, the pace of play pantheon. So when we think about, what is going to define good pace of play at Sand Valley, we have our foundation, we have our 3 pillars, and that's going to hold up our goals. So very quickly, the foundation, keeping the integrity of the tee sheet, ensuring all guests get that same level of respect, education, compassion during their Sand Valley experience. Basically what that is transparency. I don't want anybody to have special treatment. We are not a private club, we're a resort. There really shouldn't be special treatment out there. So basically, if any one of these slides, if they're in a Ranger cart and they're printed out in their little booklet, basically what I tell everybody is if this packet flew to the feet of somebody who's playing a 5-hour round, they should feel like they are getting treated exactly kind of how the book tells them. There is no special treatment. We are kind of full transparency here in our helping, educating, right, and assisting. So data collection, basically that's our numbers. How fast was the round? How fast did this hole get played? What was our average for the day? Staff commitment, how bought in is the staff? And that I have a slide about basically resort-wide buy-in, but we can kind of hone in on, the Ranger team. How committed are they to, achieving our goals? And then guest experience. How are the guests perceiving when they leave their reviews of their stay? This isn't really the numbers. This is not that they played in 420 or 415 or whatever. This is how did they feel the pace was? How did they feel they were treated by the Ranger team? What was their experience? And those are going to hold up our goals, which is, again, NPS. That's basically, our review scale. And we have a scale for the data for that, average round. And we have a scale for how the guest perceived everything. So that's our score. And we'd like to have an average pace of 420 or less. So the foundation, the pillars holding up our goals, that is basically our, 10,000 foot above vision of what we, need to achieve and how we're going to achieve it at Sand Valley. We can hit next slide. What you can basically do is turn the pantheon into a scale, right? We can, and I'll start with the example on the left here. We can manufacture average pace to be whatever we want. We can have the Rangers kick everybody off the golf course as soon as they hit the 4-hour mark, and our data for the day would show that we had 4-hour rounds. That would be one great number. That is directly at the expense of the experience of the guest, who would probably have horrible things to say, and they would leave scathing reviews that they got kicked off the golf course at the 4-hour mark. And obviously the balance beam there is the staff commitment. Where do they want to put their time in? You go completely on the opposite end of the spectrum, and all of a sudden our staff commitment scale, where we are balancing things, we can do nothing about the average pace for the day. We can tell everybody they're playing great. Maybe we hit the one group that's just a disaster out there. But you know what? We don't get any reviews that the Rangers were rude. We don't get any reviews that, we felt pushed. And all of a sudden we have our, 4-hour and 45-minute rounds. And obviously that scale is pushed way up. So, when you ask kind of what is, what's the right approach? No pun intended and no cop out intended. It's a balance. It just is what it is. We have to try to pick our battles. And that kind of teases me into, really the whole crux of this. It's really going to come down to Ranger perception. One of the biggest jumps we made when we implemented all of these systems, and as we keep going, we're going to get into the real nitty gritty of the systems. But one of the things that we really wanted was, let's maybe focus on Ranger perception. Are they helpful? Are they in the right place at the right time? Are they being perceived as a positive out there? If a starter says, hey, you're going to meet Jimbo on the third hole, let's make sure Jimbo's on the third hole and saying hi, and, really showing that we have our stuff together. So one of the big keys, one of the big, takeaways for the Ranger team this year was, let's be deliberate, right? And we do have a piece of technology in place that does allow us to be deliberate and allows us to be in the right place at the right time. So we'll hit the next slide here. And that brings us to Tag Marshal. So Tag Marshal, for, all of its flaws, I mean, it's not perfect. This is by no means a sales pitch for Tag Marshal. They're certainly the best out there. They are our chief data gathering tool. By no means is it the complete picture. We're in a very remote area. We're still working with cell signals not being amazing, but for the most part, it does show a pretty darn good rolling snapshot on a tablet. Every group gets a GPS. That GPS is mapped on the course on a tablet app. The Rangers have those tablets. They'll see, tracker 1 is red. That means they're doing bad. Tracker 2, is green. They're doing great, whatever it may be. So we can be deliberate. We can start to, use Tag Marshal in conjunction with our notes, in conjunction with the tee sheet, to try to put us in the right place at the right time, and begin to, help that perception of, okay, they're obviously on it. We're going to try to do the right thing at the right spot at the right time. So Tag Marshal, very important. Again, it's just a piece. So for anybody out there who's like, oh yeah, we got Tag Marshal, we're good. Our pace of play is fixed. It's not. It's a huge piece. Again, it allows us to track a bunch of data. It allows us to see that rolling snapshot, but it by no means just means that pace magically improves. So big caveat there. It's a piece of what we do. It's not the whole picture. So let's slide to the next spot here. Kind of before we get into really the meat of how a Ranger addresses a problem, just to kind of show that large scale buy-in that we have, that resort wide buy-in. Pace of play can be affected by pretty much every department at Sand Valley. I've picked just a few examples here. So our reservations agents, they will alert players that they are booking in a speed slot. So the speed slot is any time 8:30 or earlier in the day. You are expected to play in 4 hours flat. That is super important to us. That really sets the tone for a great day. And that is reminded to the players by the res agent. Now, it's not the full picture because that's, reservations are being made 16 months out by one guy, and he's not going to relay that to his whole group. That is said again on the tee by the starter. Gentlemen, you're in our speed slot, and he will by name the Rangers that are out there. You're going to see Jimbo and Bob out there today. Jimbo will meet you on the third hole. Bob will probably be around the sixth hole. Let me tell you, that little kind of personal touch of the name is huge. And when Jimbo is actually at hole 3, like I said before, that sets a good perception of what's ahead. That makes us look like we're on it. So that is very important to kind of set that tone for the speed slot. We talked a little bit before in the previous presentation about starter times. We have one starter time, 1 10-minute block every hour. This is true ownership buy-in. This is about $15,000 of lost revenue every day for holding those tee times. They are virtually untouchable. Maybe twice a year, one of those will get touched, but those are truly for buffering. Those are for, not allowing a potentially problematic group to dilute too deep into the golf course and kind of keep every, every hour contained in its own bubble with a starter time above and a starter time below, kind of keep that isolated. The professional staff working with the superintendent, so the grounds crew, they'll come to us and say, are the tees good? Hey, a ranger stopped, one of the guys cutting a cup. He saw the wind is picking up. He wants to move a tee in. Our pace of play manager might say, look, for the wind, for the conditions today, that pin being on the top shelf, impossible. Can we look at changing it? I'm going so far as to, again, with Tag Marshall, that'll give us every single day, every single hole's average play time. I am taking that and I am comparing it with our daily hole location chart of every single hole. And I am trying to find a correlation of fast pin locations and slow pin locations throughout the entirety of a year. And if I can come up with something that is a, fast day, right? Or fast pins. And Jonathan's looking ahead at the tee sheet and he says, Derek, there's a 215 round day coming up on Mammoth Dunes. I'm on the phone with our superintendent of Mammoth Dunes and I'm saying, we got to go to fast pins, on Saturday. We've got, our busiest day of the year. So, and grounds will totally bought in. They will happily set the course up in those conditions. One little last one here, food and beverage, putting QR codes on little business cards that we give out to the caddies or the starter will give out to the group on the first tee. If we can get them to order their stuff a hole ahead, it's an imperfect system. But again, just showing that resort buy-in, we are all trying here. So that's going to lead us right into what the heck actually happens when there is a problem. And this system has to fit the 18-year-old intern, who might be his first job ever in golf. And this has to stretch all the way to the 80-year-old, retired vet who works 2 days a week. They're the best dudes on the planet. But again, learning a new system, maybe not, what they wanted to do in their, third, fourth, fifth year at Sand Valley. So this really has to fit a, wide scope of people who are going to address a pace of play problem. It's not just the assistant pros who hop out. We don't really have that luxury at Sand Valley. So we developed the PACE system. I did not come up with the acronym. I first heard it on a podcast from a Green Beret. He kind of goes through it as you work through like life-threatening situations. I've heard it on like, overlanding, like truck overlanding. It's survivalist. It's well before me, probably well before this Green Beret. Maybe some of you have heard it, but basically it's, our internal process to help all contributors on the pace of play team work through, any type of difficult situation. It's basically our checklist. It's our escalation chart. It's how we work through a problem. So very quickly here, primary, right? This is our main course of action. This is what we default to. These are layups. And I'll go over examples in a future slide here. These are absolute layups that anybody should feel comfortable doing. Hey, you need to get to within one shot of the group ahead, right? Alternative, right? Some things don't always go to plan. These are backup measures. Now, we start implementing, the next steps. And again, I won't give examples yet. That's a future slide. Contingency, situations can quickly crumble right in front of our eyes. These are basically last ditch efforts because by the time we hit the emergency section here, that's pretty much all hope is lost. We've lost that group. We've lost control of the situation. It's time to effectively end it. So we hope we never get to the emergency side, but certainly that kind of the P, the A, and the C are certainly all in play as we work through a problem. So let's go maybe to the next slide here. So how do we turn this into something, again, that an 18-year-old or an 80-year-old can take out with them onto the golf course? We put basically solutions into buckets. We call them the PACE buckets. A couple of things you'll notice right here. That primary bucket is your biggest bucket and your emergency bucket is your smallest bucket. That is because you should have the most primary kind of options. And then obviously our ability to help gets smaller and smaller the more it gets towards emergency. So what are some absolute layups when we're on the golf course that we can do with a group? That initial friendly interaction on 3. Doesn't need to be anything more than that. The starter said Jimbo was going to be on 3. He was on 3. That is, that is a primary objective. Good. We are in our right spots. We're showing the guests we are in the right spots. We might grab a caddy, and this is, a ranger might just kind of snag a caddy on a tee box. Hey, you're 3 minutes behind. Can you maybe not read a 3-foot putt here, or, be a little quicker with them on the green? Do you want me to maybe grab the bags and stage them onto the next tee for you? Again, layups. Everyone should feel comfortable doing this stuff. Grab waters for the group on a hot day. Maybe a guy is struggling. You see him walking. He's struggling a little. Drive him to his next shot. These are by no means like, oh my gosh, we have a problem here. This is just, again, using tag Marshall, seeing a group is 2, 3, 4 minutes over pace, not letting that balloon, and just doing something, very simple. As we transition into the alternative bucket or the alternate bucket, okay, our first little tips here, our first set of tricks didn't really work. We're going to have to move towards, something a little deeper here. So I like to say that the primary bucket is very kind of spatial oriented. Hey, get back to within one group in front. You're half a hole behind. That's spatial, right? When that doesn't work with them, we got to hit them with a little bit more numerical goals. So, hey, can we play the next 3 holes at an average time of 9 minutes? I'm going to find you. That's going to bring you right to the turn stand. If you guys do that for me, I'm going to get a round of drinks for you. As we said in the last slide, in the last presentation, maybe it's offering to rake the bunker. Hey, to the caddy, just bring the bags up to the green. I'm going to rake the fairway bunker. Analyze if maybe we're a walking only golf course. Are they really limping? Is something wrong? Can they get a cart for them? Not ideal, but if we have to, we're going to fight to make this work. And that last one there, I really like. Have the group play 1 tee box forward for a couple holes. Okay, you don't think you're going to be able to play the next 3 holes in an average of 9 minutes? Can you play up a little bit? Maybe they will, maybe they won't. As we move into the contingency bucket, now we're running out of options here. This is likely when we're going to have to maybe, have them skip to 1 shot out of place. It's a tough sell. It's going to be, look, we have to play this next hole in 6 minutes. Like, it's got to be done. You can't, this hole might average 10 minutes. We got to cut that in half. We have to play this hole in 5 minutes. And then that emergency bucket is they're probably going to get taken off the golf course. Just a couple of pieces here. It'll be evident on the next slide, but let's not switch yet. One of the things that's really funny about when we introduced the pace buckets to the Ranger team is they all thought that it had to work its way through all buckets. And like anytime they started, anytime it basically went from that primary bucket to that alternate bucket, they just assumed this is ending in this group getting kicked off the golf course. Like, I can't wait, right? That's not the goal of the pace buckets. We want every interaction to end after that primary bucket. Like, we don't want to actually see this escalate from bucket to bucket and keep pulling deeper and deeper into our tactics. So, it's funny that, we would get guys who, a Ranger would try a couple tactics. They'd hop on the radio and say, Derek, you got to get out here. You got to get this group off the golf course. That's not how it works. And it's kind of the beauty of the pace buckets, really highlights that there's a lot of accountability for the Rangers in order to get, me out there to do something. And we can actually switch to the next slide as I talk about this here. So I'll bring your attention down to the bottom of this slide, basically who should execute each protocol, right? Your primary, that's your layups. Those are Rangers. Alternative, probably by our better Rangers, maybe some of our, our stronger Rangers, our lead Rangers, or our pace of play manager. By the time you get to the contingency plans, that's probably carried out by me. I'm going to be the one who's going to tell them, look, we have to play this hole in 5 minutes or we're moving on to the next one. That emergency option, that's going to be Jonathan, who's on this chat. He's probably coming out to put an end to everything. So what's great about this is that accountability, like I said, and the Rangers do have little notepads and kind of note sheets with this whole system laid out to where when they hop on the radio and they say, look, it's time for, Derek, it's time for you to get out here. I am expecting their sheet, their little pace chart that we have them fill out. I expect that to be pretty damn well filled all the way through the alternative. Because then I go out there and I know, look, Jimbo offered you free drinks. He then gave you, a very reasonable average time to play the next 3 holes. He then told you that the next person you were going to see if this didn't work out was me, right? Now I'm primed and I'm set. We got to get away from the days at Sand Valley, some of the years past where, like I said, a Ranger would try one thing, scream on the radio, pro's head falls off. I'm running out there as fast as I can. I talk to this group. They've never been taught. They go, yeah, he told us we were a couple minutes off once. I got nothing. I can't do anything there. Again, myself, Jonathan, our pace of play manager, we are directly judged on how well pace is. I want to get out there. I have to be primed for this. So this system forces the Rangers to do these steps to get themselves to the point where they can bow out, and then I can take over. Or again, hopefully just nix it before I ever have to get there. We don't have to actually work through P, A, C, and E, and everything ends with somebody coming off the golf course. So very quickly, what the heck this looks like at Sand Valley, if it worked perfectly all the way to if it was absolutely a train wreck. So the situation, let's go back one. Yep. Situation, maybe this group is trending towards getting 2 holes behind pace, right? And they're really struggling to make up ground. Now, the primary bucket happens well before they're ever 2 holes behind pace. We have failed completely if this group is 2 holes behind pace. So primary bucket in this instance, talk to the group, offer an incentive like free drinks if, and again, 8 minutes, don't even think of that. Let's think spatially. If they can, get to within 1 shot of the group in front by the first, drink stand on, 3, 4, 5, whatever it may be. Super easy. If that's it, if they catch up, they want their free drinks, done. Buckets end. Let's say they didn't. Ranger catches them. All right, we didn't hit that spatial goal. Now we've got to play these next 3 holes in an average of 9 minutes each. I'm going to drive this next one with you. There's a fairway bunker up the left that a lot of people hit. If you're in it, I'm going to rake it. Your caddy's just going to continue on and forge ahead with you. Now you're kind of, you've picked this group now. This is when I talk about being deliberate. This is what we've picked now. We are bought into helping this group try to make up 9 minutes or play each hole in 9 minutes. Maybe that works. Maybe it doesn't. In this case, let's say it doesn't. We move to our contingency. At that point, they might make one last ditch effort to the group. Guys, if this next hole is not played in 5 minutes, I know that sounds crazy. I'm promising you the next person that's going to talk to you is our head pro. And you know what? Sometimes that does work. That has worked a couple times this year. Again, if that doesn't, I'm right out there. Now we got to start talking about, okay, do we have to skip this hole? Do we have to skip this shot? I'll let you play from the very forward tees. Something's got to happen here where we play this hole beyond quickly to the point where maybe we're going to have to just plop you to 1 shot out of place. Incredibly difficult conversation to have. Something I don't want to do at a resort where somebody's paying thousands of dollars for a weekend here. And honestly, I might just be on them and on them and on them and on them that kind of first day. If they have future rounds, they're going to see me on the tee the next day. And there's going to be, we might let them get away with that first one, but someone's going to be on the tee for their second round, letting them know that, that was not acceptable. If it gets to the point of just beyond repair, they may be taken off the golf course at that point. Full refunds for their rounds. You got to be pretty damn near like blackout and belligerent and on like a 5.5 hour pace for us to get there. But we are pushed by ownership to get to that point. Don't be afraid to get to that emergency bucket. Probably more than we would feel comfortable. But again, that's the buy-in. If we got to get tough, we have to get tough. And again, this system hopefully allows the Rangers to, stay in their comfort zone and then pass off the problem with accountability, me knowing steps have been done to get me involved, to get Jonathan involved, and to get it out of their court. Last slide here before we open it up for questions. I could go on for 9 more hours, but basically where I am going to start 2023's training is with that word cloud. If we can back up one, Eric, I think it's gone here. Yep. So this word cloud, we can still see it here. This is basically what I asked Rangers in exit interviews, or our pace of play manager did a beautiful exit interview with all 24 of our Rangers. He said one of the questions was, what makes a good Ranger? This is right where I'm starting 2023 training. These are their words of what makes a good Ranger. Communication, right? We all have to communicate well to each other. Communication, I'm going to throw this right back at them. Okay, communication from you to me is filling out your pace charts, right? When I don't get those, that's bad communication. You want to go to something like attention to detail, right? That's being deliberate. That's us being in the right spot at the right time. Why did you let, this tracker turn from green to red? Attention to detail is looking at our tablets, right? So, all of this, I'd imagine if anybody wants any of this stuff, I'll happily send it along. But if you want to just quickly take, 30 seconds as I'm talking here to just kind of look at the word cloud. Again, this is right where we're going to leave off. This is from Rangers to Rangers, what they think makes them good at the job. And kind of lastly here, this whole experiment of the pace buckets, the Pantheon, this was 2022 was year 1 of this. This was a complete overhaul of what our previous system was, which, as I said, was basically getting on a radio and screaming that someone needs to come off the golf course. This is a 10-year plan here. This is not something that just is going to get implemented and everybody feels good with, but it is certainly the building blocks of a place that does not have the luxury of just sending one assistant out. And legitimately has 24 to 30 people that might take a Ranger shift at any point in a season. We got to at least nail the basics. We got to at least have some sort of framework to play within. And then we really allow the personality of the Ranger, which is right at the bottom of that word cloud. We allow that personality to come out once it works within that framework. So hopefully nobody's head exploded there and nobody thinks I'm a lunatic, because I know that was probably a slightly different approach to pace of play, but happy to answer questions, or we can plow ahead. Thank you, Erica.
Thanks, Derek. Let me stop sharing here as I bring up Shaun's, but certainly those on the call, shout out any questions here while I transition into our final presentation. I'll note too, just because I know sometimes it's tricky to see the presentations with the screen share, and especially if you're tuning in by phone, I will make them viewable on our members only website or page, I should say, in addition to this recording. So if you missed something, feel free to check that out when we finish today. I am going to bring up Shaun's presentation. If there are no questions, we'll sit tight and make sure I have everything ready to go. All right, Shaun, how are we looking? Can we see?
Looks good, yeah. Looks
Awesome.
good on my end, assuming everyone else can see it.
Excellent. I will put myself on mute, Shaun. Just give me a holler when you want me to switch to, whoops, to the next slide, okay?
Sounds great, thank you. Again, thanks for everyone for being on. Obviously, Jason and Derek had a lot of good information. I don't think I'll say a ton new, but I'll obviously try to come at it from a different perspective. From a public facility, obviously, we're trying to cater to a number of different individuals. So it's a little bit different from us that we don't have everyday members and we don't have resort specific guests. So Erica, you can go to the first one. I think for pace of play for us at a public facility, obviously, I think it starts with our goals of what we're trying to create. I think Jason hit it great when he said, no one thinks they're a sole player. So how do we create an environment to give everybody the best opportunity to succeed from a pace of play standpoint, to meet some of our goals? Obviously, we're trying to ensure that we've got a quality guest experience being a public facility. Obviously, we have a diverse range of players from beginners to advanced players, especially over the last few years, where we have a lot of new individuals into the game. And as we've already talked about, they might not even know what pace of play is. But we want to make sure that we're welcoming for everybody, that we're very open with them, and we're upfront with them. We want to manage their expectations. We might have 4 of Jason's members one day, and they're used to playing a 3-hour and 45-minute round, where we might have other guests that think, hey, a 5-hour round that we played at our last course we played at was just fine. So we've got to find a way to mesh those expectations and how we try to get everybody on the same page. And I think, again, it's being upfront with them. And are we creating a realistic goal? Is a 4-hour round realistic to play 18 holes at the Oaks Golf Course in July? We've done a lot of research on that, and I think that's something that we need to be upfront as well. And I think as a whole, as a facility, if you can be upfront with those guests to give them the expectations, I think that'll be a reoccurring theme for us, is that we're trying to make sure that we're all on the same page, that there's no unexpected pace, unexpected expectations, or anything that those guests might have a bad experience. We take in course conditions similar to what Jason talked about with hole locations, and Derek talked about hole locations, the number of rounds that we do. Obviously, we're a very busy facility. We can do 275 rounds in a day. So again, managing expectations of, is a 4-hour round, maybe that's the gold standard, is that feasible? And again, like I said, starting out, we want to make sure we're welcoming to everybody. We want them to come back. They have a choice to play one of 30 golf courses in the area, and we want them to feel like they were welcome and they have the opportunity and every reason to come back and play again. You can switch over, Erica. It starts with our tee sheet. We spend a lot of time on our tee sheet, and we've spent a lot of time over the last 15, 20 years that we've been open, coming up with the right setup. Again, we want to set our guests up for success when they're out on the golf course. We make sure that we only have 4 players in a group. I know other facilities will allow 5-somes, and hey, it's slow out there, can we play as 5? We've had groups that want to play as 6-somes, 7-somes, 8-somes. But we try to stay hard and cold with, we allow 4-somes. So no matter what, whether it's slow or not, we don't allow 5-somes. We don't allow groups to join up. We put the max at 4, and that's the expectation. When we're booking tee times, we'll allow groups of 5 to split up as 3 and 2, but we won't let them book as 5-somes. We have many instances, and I'll get into it in a second, where groups will try to join up on the first tee or on the golf course. And again, it's just managing them and monitoring them to make sure that they stay as we send them out on the golf course. Our tee times at a public facility are super important. We've tried a number of different variations, from 8 minutes to 8-9 minutes to 10 minutes. But we found that we've been pretty successful with 9 minutes. I think it's important with tee times is making sure you stay on schedule with those tee times, not only from not getting behind, but also not getting ahead. We've had busier days where our starter every once in a while will be excited because they'll be like, hey, we're 9 minutes ahead. Well, we try to keep that interval and that space to make sure that those groups maintain that space out on the golf course. We're not trying to jam so many groups out there that it gets bogged down while they're out there. So we try to set them up for success. On the first tee, we might get a group that tees off really fast, and the group is behind them is ready to go right behind them. But it's our goal to try to maintain that tee time, and we'll train our starters to make sure that they're staying on that. So if their tee time's 10:09, we're going to keep them at 10:09. We won't let them go at 10:04 just because the 10 o'clock group got out early. Now, if there's a group that doesn't show up or something like that, we can definitely look to move ahead. But general terms, we try to keep times right as they are. And if we do have a group that doesn't show up or cancels last minute or any of that, we've obviously got a built-in starter time that both Jason and Derek obviously talked about. We're very similar. We use those times as a bonus time for us. to make sure that we're able to meet some of our expectations with our pace of play round. So myself, our golf professional staff will monitor the tee sheet. We'll start doing it outwards of 7 days in advance, especially on holidays as well. Days we know we're going to be busy, even weekend days, just in general. We'll start with 1 or 2 starter times. Now, if we can see how the tee sheet plays out, we may not use them. So again, we can give it back, but it's there for us to make sure that it allows us for groups that show up late. We've got, again, we've got such a wide range of players that we want to be flexible. We've had instances before where we have a group that thinks they booked on a Saturday when realistically their tee time confirmation was for the following Saturday. And rather than turn them away, we've used those starter times to fill them in so we can still give them a good experience, even though they might have made the mistake on their end when they booked the tee time. Same goes for a lot of our larger groups. On weekends, if we get groups of 24, 36 that are booking, from time to time, we'll put a starter time right after them, or that's where our starter time will fall, just in case, again, they're slow getting off the tee, or there's some slowdown or hold up where they've got multiple groups, and there's a lot of conversation and chit chat before the round. So and even while out on the golf course, just to have that backup time right behind them can give that first group behind the bigger group a little bit of a buffer. So if they do catch up to them, it might take them a little bit longer. But again, those starter times I think are very critical. I know we have the conversation with our owner. I know Derek said as well, but the ownership buy-in of that, just to create the experience, can pay dividends by giving up those couple times. We don't do it every hour. We might do it once or twice a day on busy days from a starter time. Go ahead, Eric. I think the training starts right away, and those expectations. Go back. You're fine, Erica, where you were. There you go. Our starter is one of our most critical staff members. Again, we're trying to set the expectations. We train all of our starters to give the same speech. We want, whether Steve or Bill or Joe is on the first tee as our starter, we want them to give the same speech no matter which one of the three is on the first tee. So we have some expectations of what we want them to go through, whether the guests have played here before, whether they have not. We establish our pace of play in busy days at 4 hours and 29 minutes, just based on the number of rounds we're doing, the intervals of the tee times, and the difficulty of the golf course. It's based on a lot of our past history. We've used a lot of data to create that based on similar to what Derek said, where you have whole pace averages. We have GPS, I'll get into it in a second, but that helps us understand expectations. Again, we're trying to build realistic expectations of, hey, it's not just a 4-hour round of golf. Again, are we being realistic with all of those factors that I just mentioned? One of the most important things our starter does is help the group select a tee. This is critical. We've really tried to harp on this and make this a main point of emphasis when groups are teeing off. We've changed the colors of our tees from, rather than red, white, blue, we've created 5 sets of tees as well. So we used to have a set of tees that was 5,700 yards, and then our next set of tees was 6,300 yards. Years ago, we noticed that was a big difference. So we actually added a 5th set that was roughly 6,000 yards. We had a lot of feedback from surveys and comment cards about wanting to play a golf course that was at least 6,000 yards. So we made the golf course like 6,009 yards. And as long as it was over 6,000, we had some individuals like, oh, I'll play that tee instead of having to play them at 6,300 yards. I think it's also important understanding the golf course too. We're a par 71 golf course. We have 6 par 3s. We have 5 par 5s. It's a little bit non-traditional. So even though a 6,300 yard golf course is definitely going to play longer than that. So helping those guests find the right tee is important. Our starter does a really good job of explaining our GPS. We have Visage with our club cars. So just going through how that works, how that can help them. And then also giving them tips about some of the more difficult holes or just some of the expectations of cart restrictions, where certain things are, where the restrooms are, those types of things to help with pace as they're moving around. Again, we're trying to be proactive before they go out. So our starter does a great job with checking in with groups, figuring out who's the 1009, who's the 1018. Do they have the 4 players? Do they not? Has the golf shop communicated? Are we pairing any groups up? So again, there's no surprises for our starter down on the first tee, just to keep that pace moving, to make sure we stay on time. Again, that starter, he or she is one of the most critical staff members we have throughout the day for our public facility. Go ahead, Erica. I mentioned GPS. As Derek mentioned with Tag Marshall, we use Visage. It is a huge component of our pace of play. It has so many benefits. Obviously, there's a pretty significant cost to have it, but I can't imagine not having it anymore. Just with what we can do. Again, I think Jason mentioned it as well, but we want to be proactive, not reactive. And the GPS allows us to do so much of that. There's a ton of great options obviously out there, but we can track on our golf shop desktops. We can track all of our play real time. A vast majority of our play does ride. So almost every group, we have a golf car in every group. If we do have a group of walkers, obviously we can see where the group behind them is. We see where the group in front of them is. So we can kind of pinpoint the walkers even on the golf course without them taking a golf car. But again, it's real time. So we get constant updates of pace of play of where those groups are. I can see that the 1009 group is 4 minutes ahead of pace through 3 holes. So we can see the ebbs and flows to the round, and it allows us to address those issues. Like Derek said, we should hopefully never get to a point where there is a group 2 holes behind on the golf course, because hopefully we've seen that and we've already started to address that. It's a critical tool for us to be able to make sure that again, we're constantly monitoring the pace of play as we go throughout the day. The golf cart tracking is great. We can trace where golf cars were throughout the round. So I can see where those golf cars drove. I can see what time they were. So if somebody is upset at the turn, we can let them know that based on their golf cart tracking, they didn't leave the first tee until 10:02. They're making the turn at 12:12. It's 2 hours and 10 minutes, and they're complaining that it's taking 3 hours to play the front 9, where we have real-time information. Not that we'll come back at them with that, but at least it gives us an idea of where we actually are to their perception, and maybe it's trying to get their perception to match up with our expectation again of what our starter sent on the first tee. We do have the ability to message groups as well. So we can send reminders to them. We can let them know where they're at on the golf course. The same thing, like Jason mentioned, I think it's important that we talk to the groups behind them as well. So we can message groups behind them, letting them know that we're addressing, any issues farther along on the golf course, to let them know that we're aware of the situation. Because there are times when we'll have less on-course presence because we have the ability to track the golf cars and the pace of play through the GPS. So we may not have the rangers. We call them course advisors versus a ranger. The ranger, we found that it just has such a negative connotation in the golf industry that we've gotten away from calling them rangers. We call them course advisors. Again, somebody that's out there to help, like we've said a couple times already, whether it's raking bunkers or taking the flag out, anything that to help them, helping them park their cart or move their cart around, look for lost balls in the fescue, anything like that. We'll still have those staff on busier days, but again, it's allowed us to save on some labor while still providing a good experience. A lot of times, those individuals, they just want to know that somebody's out there. So our golf shop staff, will take a lap around the golf course and literally just wave and say hi and how's it going, and they think we're doing the world of help out there for them. Even though again we're just out there to monitor and just make sure that we're out there to be seen as well. Go ahead, Erica. Obviously, we can't stay in front of it all. I think it's important that handling the issues with pace of play, again, it's such a hot topic. It's an issue that'll never go away. Like I mentioned before, we have the guests that think they should play in 3 hours, and we have the guests that think it's okay to play in 5 hours. And again, it's setting the expectation and making sure that we're all on the same page. Not only before, but like I said, during, after. We want those guests to have the best possible experience. And I think, again, the more we can be proactive with them and not just send them out and let them go. But again, even on days and times when we don't have a starter or if it's a slower period where we don't still set that expectation. So no matter when they play your facility or when they're at your course, they know they're getting that same verbiage, they're getting that same expectation of what you as a facility are hoping for. Because if they have no idea that a 4 hour and 29 minute round is your expectation, they might think 4 hours and 29 minutes is forever. But if I can set that expectation at the start of the round, maybe we can get away from, some of the disgruntled guests at, during and after the round. When we do have upset guests, we try to alienate them, or we try to separate them if they come into the golf shop, or if they're out at our bag drop. We'll try to get them into a more private space where they can, let us know their frustration. We don't want to create a scene. So we'll give them the opportunity to state their side of the story, what their experience was. And then obviously we can, formulate our response. Some of those things that we've done, but again, Jason and Derek had said, we'll talk about, buying them a round of drinks. We've gone as far as giving them a rain check to come back, not a pass, but just a rain check to come back, and maybe try a different day or a less busy time. Same with some of our inexperienced guests. If they're struggling and they do decide to come off the golf course, or if we get to that point, again, we'll give them that opportunity to come back, and maybe we'll suggest some different times that they can come back. Maybe, instead of a Friday afternoon, maybe come back Friday morning, or, during the week, or a Sunday afternoon, or those types of things where it can be a training opportunity as well for our staff to let them know how to make sure that, again, no matter the situation, everybody leaves happy. Everybody wants to come back and play with us. So, again, I think our biggest thing is being proactive, making sure we're setting those expectations, and then using the resources we have with proper staff training, using our GPS, making sure that our staff is always aware. If I happen to come in later during the day, or even if I'm off and I check in with our staff, I think that's one of the first things that I always check with them. How's the day going and how's pace? So I think those are important things that can set our experience up and be successful from the start, because if they have good pace of play and they're having a good experience, a lot of the rest takes care of itself. So it's tricky from a public facility, because again, yes, we do have a lot of returning players, but yes, we do have a revolving door where we want everybody, whether they play here 1 time a year or 20 times a year. Again, we're trying to give them the reason to come back and make sure that they're having a great experience. So again, if you can get your staff, have policies, have procedures, training in place, you can set yourself up. But again, I think the expectation from staff to guest, and that those are very similar, can lead you to, some very positive and very successful day-to-day pace and, day-to-day experiences. So that is primarily everything from, what we do here at the Oaks, from a public facility. If Eric, I think that should be all for my aspect. If anybody has any questions, I'll gladly take those as well. And if not, that's okay too.
I'm just checking the chat real quick, making sure. All right, no questions in the chat. I know we went a little overtime, so I appreciate everybody sticking on. Great job by all of our presenters, Shaun, Derek, Jason. Thanks again for being a part of this. Like I mentioned right before we started Shaun's, I am going to post the recording as well as links to the PowerPoint presentations that were presented today on our members only page. So just make sure you go to our section website, log in with your pj.org credentials, and you'll be able to view what we covered today. Real quick, if for some reason you weren't able to log on and change your settings to show your first and last name, just take a look at your dashboard here in the next day or so. I'll typically get PDRs posted by the end of the day. If for some reason I missed you, just shoot me an email. It's an easy fix, but I will let everybody go and you guys enjoy the rest of your Tuesday. Take care, everybody.
Thanks, Erica, and thanks, guys. Bye-bye.